Live to the San Francisco 49ers joint practices versus the Raiders. And oh boy, do we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The good old friend, the injury bug, has shown up, and boy, has he showed up and made himself at home with the San Francisco 49ers. So we're going to talk about that, what the impact is, and how the 49ers move forward. We're going to talk about and recap what happened at joint practices today. Oh boy, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Before we get going, smash that like button, drop a SDS in the chat. Let's cook. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. Oh boy. Wouldn't be the San Francisco 49ers unless we had some injuries pop up. Uh, Really unfortunate scenario that has developed and came out of joint practices. Was really hoping to get on here, talk more about the play on the field. But the first portion of our conversations will be about injuries and unfortunate injuries at that. We have our first severe injury of this season, and it comes to a player that the 49ers do rely on and count on. Our good friend Ray McCloud has broken his wrist. He will require surgery and is expected to miss up to 8 weeks. So obviously that leads into the regular season. And that is going to be an interesting situation because, as we know, he's the 49ers starting kick returner. So he has a prominent role on special teams. We understand that he was able to, make some or make his presence felt as a receiver and things like that. So we know he's a dynamic player. He's been having a really solid camp, and he was going to be a guy that made the roster. So this is a bit of a blow for the San Francisco 49ers because, again, like I said, this guy is going to make the roster. He was going to be one of your 5 or 6, 53 man wide receiver that make the final roster come cut down day. So it is a bit of a blow, but as we understand that when you have an injury, we know what the mentality is. The mentality is next man up. And right now, if you had to have a serious injury like this occur, again, not saying that you ever want an injury like this to occur, but if it had to happen, wide receiver, the wide receiver room is probably one of the deepest right now on the entire roster. So it's an unfortunate scenario for Ray McCloud. The positive being that it's about 8 weeks. So we should be able to get him in the right around after the first quarter of the season. Plenty of season left where Ray can make an impact, but it will also give another opportunity to another wide receiver on the roster. And as we know, the 49ers wide receivers have been pretty solid this year. I think Danny Gray had done enough to solidify his roster spot this year. So I already had Danny Gray as one of my guys making the final 53, but that really opens up the door to guys like not Ray, to Tay Martin, to Chris Conley, Willie Snead, Isaiah Winstead, and Ronnie Bell. So as a result, the 49ers at least have a really nice mix of veterans who have had phenomenal camps, and not only veterans, but ascending second, third year players that the 49ers can rely on because they've proven they can do that in training camp. So, like guys like Tay Martin, many might not know who Tay Martin is, but he did have a really good camp. He ran with the ones on a couple occasions. I didn't see Tay Martin have a drop all training camp. So I think he's a guy that the 49ers could rely on. It's going to be interesting to see who they ultimately choose to kind of fill that hole. Um, maybe it's Chris Conley. I would have to say at this point, especially if you're looking for a veteran presence, might have to be Chris Conley. But again, Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell is a guy who's looked pretty solid. I tweeted this out yesterday. The 49ers have a logjam at the wide receiver 6 spot. I just tweeted this out. So again, no injuries are a good thing ever. But trying to be an optimist and look at the bright side of things, the 49ers have a ton of depth. And you look at this list of Chris Conley, Willie Snead, Tay Martin, Ronnie Bell, and Isaiah Winstead. All these guys can absolutely be someone that steps in. I don't look at really any of these guys, maybe outside of Ronnie Bell, as someone who could fit the special teams role. Chris Conley to me is more of your he's kind of an ex wide receiver. He can do it all. He's kind of an outside guy who's going to play outside the numbers. Um, Quality effort guy. Willie Snead to me is kind of like a slot guy. He can play inside, he can play out. Tay Martin can play inside, he can play out. Ronnie Bell um, has had a pretty solid camp, and he proves he's got a really good pair of hands, and he has some pretty solid athletic ability. And Isaiah Winstead, 6'4", moves extremely well. So all these guys, to me, have proven that they have an opportunity to make the squad already. But now we have the injury to Ray McCloud, and now one of these guys will absolutely fill that role. So who do you guys think? I'll turn this to you. We'll poll the chat really quick before, unfortunately, we move on to the next set of injuries. Stay tuned. We have more injuries, people. But before we get into those injuries, who do you guys see? Because as it stands right now, the 49ers have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Jawan Jennings, and Danny Gray. So they got 4. If you had to add a 5th, who's going to be the 5th guy? Because I would imagine we see Ray go to IR, which is going to open up a roster spot. And so we got to see who's going to step into that role. I'm seeing Ronnie Bell, a lot of Ronnie Bell. I mean, this honestly could be the Ronnie Bell. This could be the thing that keeps Ronnie Bell on this roster, because Kyle Shanahan just talked about Ronnie Bell at the podium, said that he's liked what he's seen out of Ronnie Bell. He has a shot at making this roster. So we know Ronnie Bell is a 7th-round draft pick. So they have a little bit of draft capital invested into him. You look at Chris Conley, signed him off the streets. Willie Snead signed off the streets. Tay Martin, undrafted free agent. Isaiah Winstead, undrafted free agent. Ronnie Bell is actually the only guy on this list that the 49ers have actually invested some kind of capital into outside of just signing a contract. So, and I will say, Ronnie Bell has showed some stuff. So, I think the question becomes, if we're talking about final 53 and who's going to make the roster, it's who do they think they'll be able to sneak back around to the practice squad, and who do they think won't. So, and we'll see really quickly. If Ronnie Bell goes out and has a really good preseason performance against the Raiders and, the next 2 games, that might be enough where Kyle's like, all right, we can't risk this. So I don't think it's determined yet. I definitely don't think it's set in stone. And I think this preseason will be huge into determining which one of these wide receivers fills that role for Ray McCloud. So it could be Ronnie Bell, could be Tay Martin, could be Chris Conley, could be Willie Snead. Again, it's really close. All these guys have done a pretty phenomenal job in the training camp arena. But Unfortunately, that is not the only injuries that were reported or sustained today. So, again, I really didn't want to come on here or expect to come on here to spend so much time on injury stuff, but it is what it is. And we got to keep everyone in the know and talk about what we've got going on surrounding the San Francisco 49ers. And that opens up the door for these three gentlemen. We have tight end George Kittle, who did not practice today with an abductor strain. Defensive end Drake Jackson didn't practice today with a hamstring. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw did not practice today, hamstring. Or I think he left practice today with a hamstring. So our good old pal, Mr. 49ers injury bug was like, we're like, we got through training camp pretty unscathed for the most part. And I was like, oh, this feels good. 49ers made it through training camp. We got out of here healthy. We had Elijah Mitchell a little dinged up. We had guys a little dinged up here or there, but nothing serious. And again, we got our first serious injury. But I wouldn't say these are serious. These are soft tissue injuries, and that is pretty typical around this time of the year. None of these injuries, I believe, are going to linger through to the regular season. It will hold these guys out of preseason. I don't think any three of these guys are going to see the field against the Raiders. We'll see if they even get on the field for week 2 of the preseason. We'll find out. But luckily, these injuries typically are about a week to 2 weeks. And again, soft tissue. So you just got to give it time, work them out, and let these things get back. So Kittle, Drake, and Greenlaw have these soft tissue injuries. I even think we have a good friend, Ian Williams, former 49ers defensive tackle, provides some insight on, he commented on one of the posts. He even says soft tissue injuries are more likely to occur earlier in the preseason. There's a different pace in which you move when you are going against another team other than your own teammates. With joint practices, these will occur, but luckily they are early enough in August to recover from. So just like Ian's talking about, these are things that likely won't linger into the regular season. Obviously, that's barring re-injury and things like that. So with at least these three, it's not the end of the world because we understand we are going to get these guys back and they should be fine for the regular season, which is the most important thing. And just unfortunate to get the Ray news and then kind of compounded with this news. Not fun. I know you guys are just like me. I know you're just like me. You get PTSD when you see these templates go up because the 49ers, as long as I've been doing this, I started doing this in 2018. The amount of injury posts that I've had to make for this team over that time period, I don't even want to know what that number is because it's a daunting number. So I understand probably more than any of you guys, or just as much as any of you guys, how these injuries have been just like stacking for years. It's almost like we know they're coming, but every time they happen, we're still like shocked by it, and then our PTSD gets triggered, and then we're we're trying to rationalize and talk ourselves through it. Trust me, I've been through the 7 stages of grief with injury, just like you guys. So I understand where you guys are at. I understand the thoughts around this, but I will say, I think these three are going to be all right, and I do think at the positive is that Ray will be able to be back probably around after the quarter mark of the season. And the other positive with that is it opens up the door for someone who probably wasn't going to make the roster, and I think is definitely worthy of making the roster. So that it's much different, I would say, if Ray goes down and we're looking at this wide receiver room behind them and we're like, oh gosh, like we don't even have anyone to fill in. Like none of these guys are worthy of being a roster. These are just camp bodies. Like I don't perceive it to be that way. So this might be the window that opens up for guys like Ronnie Bell, Tay Martin, Chris Conley, Willie Snead. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But that was what we got from an injury standpoint. Didn't love to see that. Didn't love to see that at all. But we did get our boys out there on the field. We had this was before obviously Dre Greenlaw goes out. And again, joint practices with the Raiders today. Boys going at it. Good to see the guys out there. I really like this update. So I've been trying to go through and read through all the updates that I could get. This particular update from Roster Watch says, of all people, Clelin Ferrell, now a 49er, is blowing up Raiders offensive linemen during drills in joint practices. Clelin has definitely been one of the bigger standouts from 49ers training camp up till this point. So Clelin has done a phenomenal job throughout training camp. He's taken strides. He's gotten better. He's improved, and each day gotten better and better and better. So I'm not surprised at all by hearing that Clelin Ferrell is out here cooking Raiders offensive linemen. I'm really not surprised by it. I think Clelin has done a really, really good job. And again, going up in training camp against guys like Trent Williams, like he's won reps against Trent Williams, multiple reps against Trent Williams. So I think that speaks highly to where Clelin is right now. And, with the 49ers, we've been wondering who's going to be the guy opposite of Nick Bosa. And, we're waiting for Nick Bosa to get that contract signed. I saw some update come across from Pat McAfee saying that they believe that Nick Bosa will get signed after the second preseason game. So again, we're still in a wait and see period. But the fact that we have guys like Clelin Ferrell stepping up right now, that's exactly what I'm looking for in training camps. Like we know at this current point of what to expect from the top end guys. Like we know what the top end guys are going to provide. What we're looking for is who are the risers, who are the guys that maybe we're not expecting, who are the guys that come out of nowhere that create an impact. And we understand the playbook right now. We understand what it is. Chris Kocurek has been able to turn other people's trash into diamonds. Like think about Arden Key. Arden Key, former Raider, cut, let go. We don't want you, Arden. Comes over to the 49ers, 6 sacks, and has been able to parlay that into future contracts with other teams. Then we get Charles Omenihu. We get Charles Omenihu from the Texans for a 5th round draft pick. Charles Omenihu, with legal troubles, signs a big time contract with the Chiefs. So this to me is why. So I went on Bleacher Report. I did a segment where I listed 4 underrated players heading into the season, and this was prior to training camp. I picked Clelin Ferrell as one of my guys that's going to be underrated and that I truly believed was going to be a part of this reclamation kind of ongoing situation. He fits perfectly for what Chris Kocurek does with these kind of big ends that aren't like prototypical speed rushers, but they have length, they have size, they're more geared towards being big ends and not Leos. And he is able to find those guys and plug them into his defensive line, and they find success. And so I am not surprised that Cleveland is having a good camp and is continuing that with joint practices against his former team. I think that I think right now, throughout training camp, I think Cleveland was a step better, just a notch better than Drake Jackson. I think Drake Jackson had a pretty solid camp this year. I think he looks better than last year, but I think Cleveland was just a notch ahead. And so I think that's still a good thing for the 49ers as they continue to move forward. I saw this one. I thought this was pretty funny. Paul Gutierrez of ESPN was reporting that there was a mini scuffle. Raiders Nate Hobbs takes exception to block from 49ers Jawan Jennings and takes a swipe at him, broken up quickly. Where have we heard that before? This is like, this is just, this makes me happy. It brings smile to my face. I think it just perfectly depicts Jawan Jennings, because this guy is going to just make opposing defensive backs so angry. He's going to piss these guys off because he goes 150% in the run game. This guy, once he gets his hands on you, he's tossing you around. I mean, he's 6'4". He's big. He's strong. So when he gets his hands on these little DBs, he's tossing them around, and they don't like it. And they take shots at him. They swipe him. They trash talk him. They try to get in his ear. And Jawan doesn't care. Jawan wants all the smoke. He's going to block you into the turf, and he's going to get up, and he's going to walk back to the huddle. These guys are going to throw swipes at him. They're going to get in his ear. They're going to chirp him. Jawan wants all the smoke. He does not care. I love this. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's great. Shout out to Jawan, man. Contract year for Jawan. So I expect this is going to be the best version of Jawan that we see. This is a money year for Jawan. And we know what that means, man. Money motivated on top of already just being motivated to be great. So I think Jawan is going to have a pretty solid year. And he's also had a really quality training camp. He looks leaner. He looks faster. And his hands look phenomenal. And we already know what it is. He's going to be a factor in the run game. So really, really excited about what Jawan is going to bring to the table. It's kind of funny trying to like read through some of the practice reports. What's really cool about being able to like read through the practice reports is we get two sides. We get Raider bias and we got 49ers bias going full force at each other. It's been fantastic. I think a perfect example of it, it was Vic Tafer, phenomenal beat reporter for the Raiders. I got a lot of respect for Vic Tafer. He's been around for years. He put out something about how Jimmy Garoppolo, I think it was move the ball period. He connected on two like intermediate passes, and then the way he prefaced it was, "Oh, then Jimmy Garoppolo goes over the top for a deep ball connection to Devontae Adams," and then all the comments below it were, "This guy reported that it was a catch out of bounds. This guy reported they didn't get in bounds. This guy reported that it was out of bounds, out of bounds, out of bounds, out of bounds." Oh, I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny because, like, again, without context, you see that, okay, Jimmy hits Devontae Adams, down the field, and everyone's like, no, that was an out of bounds pass. It didn't count. Just like, what? So, anyways, um, again, It's why I totally understand. Again, after this is I've covered training camp for 3 years now. All my opinions are based on my own eyeballs. So I don't care what anyone else sees or watches. I trust my eyes. I'm not saying I'm right all the time, but I trust my eyes enough that I don't look at anyone else's reports. So when you kind of move to this side, and again, I was at joint practices last year with Minnesota. So again, I didn't read anyone else's reports because I was there. So I would just take my own notes and report on what I saw. So kind of being again on this side of it where you just have now 49ers and Raiders and you're trying to make sense of it, and it's just kind of funny. I understand why people are like, dude, what are these reports? We can't make sense of anything right now. Um, but anyways, in regards to kind of the 49ers and what the 49ers were doing, I did see so like for example, there's not a ton of context that I've really come across. I'm getting like, straight to the point, like results. This is the result of what happened. For the 49ers, it does appear that Brock Purdy on the first drive threw an interception. That's about all I got. He threw an interception. I don't know if the ball was behind, it sailed, it got tipped. It was a sack that led to I don't know. It just Brock Purdy interception. So Brock Purdy had a interception on his first drive, and then it sounds like Brock Purdy came back, and then Brock Purdy threw a touchdown pass to Christian McCaffrey, and then it appears that on that touchdown play was the Jawan and Raiders defensive back scuffle. So it sounds like they got into a fight on that touchdown. So I see Brock Purdy interception. I see Purdy touchdown to Christian McCaffrey. For Jimmy Garoppolo, again, this is from Lombardi as well. He says Jimmy Garoppolo moved the Raiders to 2 first downs and field goal range against the 49ers first team defense with completions to Jacoby Myers and Hunter Renfrow. Drive ended with a third down incompletion to Devontae Adams on a deep sideline throw. Adams caught it but couldn't get his 2 feet in bounds. That's what I was talking about, where the Raiders reporter tweeted out that Jimmy Garoppolo connected to Devontae Adams on a deep ball, but he didn't report that it was out of bounds and it didn't count. I think that's funny. I think it's funny because as someone who goes to camp and does this similar thing, like I think that context is important that hey, you could still say Jimmy connected to Devontae Adams on this beautiful ball down the deep right sideline, and it was caught, but didn't get the feet in bounds. Like I feel like that's pretty important context because, as we know, that doesn't count. It doesn't count in practice. It doesn't count in the real game. So, again, I thought it was funny. I did. I got a chuckle out of that. I got a chuckle out of that situation. Um, then I believe after that, it sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo. This is from Lombardi as well. So far, Lombardi has kind of put out the best contextualized situations, so I can kind of start to picture what happened. He says Jimmy Garoppolo leads Raiders offense down the field against the 49ers defense and finishes the march with a TD pass to Austin Hooper. So sounds like Jimmy, our boy Jimmy G, was able to find Austin Hooper for a touchdown on move the ball period. Also, this is from Lombardi. Again, right now, again, sifting through everything, Lombardi has put some context to this stuff. So he says Brock Purdy did a good job moving the ball downfield against the Raiders defense in 2-minute drill. but only one chance near the goal line and incompletion to Juwan Jennings. Big completion to Deebo Samuel to set up the chance for turn 49ers. I don't know what that means. Brian Hoyer pick six. Brian Hoyer, former 49ers legend. Kidding. Throws a pick six to 49ers Miles Hartsfield. So also one of the things that I saw this from Matt Barrows. So apparently Trey Lance leads what he calls a good looking drive down the field. And there was a fourth down. They went for it on fourth down in the end zone. Even Kyle Shanahan talked about this. I listened in. Kyle Shanahan talked about this. He gave praise to Trey Lance on this. It sounded like Trey Lance kind of escaped out of the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, found Cameron Latu, but Cameron Latu dropped it. Unfortunately, it's really, I don't love, again, it's still really early on in training camp, and we're still trying to figure out these young players. And I don't like labeling young players because guys can fix it, turn it around, things can click, they can get out of their own head. But so far, and I've talked about it on this channel, talked about it I think 2 days ago when I did risers fallers. I had Latu as a faller because he consistently dropped the football. So that is continuing. We want to see the drops, we don't want drops to be a consistent thing. We want those to be outliers. Like, drops can happen, but they got to be outliers, right? Like, out of every 10, you got to catch 9 of them. And we'll give you some grace. But it can't be out of 10 catches, you drop 7 of them. That is where I think we are right now with Latu. And again, he's a young player. I'm not ready to label him as anything, but he has had a really difficult time catching passes all throughout training camp. And I'm talking about in warm-ups, like when they're running against air, I've seen him drop the ball. I've seen him drop the ball in one-on-ones where he's wide open, like he creates good separation, gets open, drops the ball, or team. So it's a trend now. And so now what he has to do is he's got to get into these preseason games, and he's got to catch everything that is thrown his way. Like, he's unfortunately at this point, like, any kind of drop grace is like, he's used it up. Like, he's had too many drops to the point where it's like, okay, now we're getting a little concerned about it. Not just like, oh, some guys they can deal with drops and concentration drops and putting too much pressure on themselves. I mean, that's kind of what I kind of feel like. He's putting a lot of pressure on himself. And he's just, I don't know, he's having some concentration issues with bringing it in. But we're building a trend here where that's starting to define him. And that's where I get concerned for young players, because I don't want to see that. And I want to see. So the biggest thing that we're going to be looking for Latu is when we get into game time situations, dude's got to catch everything. He's got to catch everything. Like, he already has built up a perception right now of not having good hands. So when he gets into preseason games, he's got to catch everything. We got to see tough catches. We got to see easy catches. We got to see contested catches. We have to see. That's going to change the perception. Right now, he's built up a poor perception. He has an opportunity to flip it. but it's got to happen in preseason when everyone watching and the lights are the brightest. That is going to be able to get people to calm down a little bit. I think people are I mean, I'm concerned. I told you right now, if you took Braden Willis and you took Cameron Latu and you told me they were flipped in their draft where they were drafted, I would believe you. If you told me Braden Willis was your third round pick and Cameron Latu was your seventh, I would believe you. That's what it's looked like. So we want there's lots of room for improvement for Latu right now. So gotta get it in, baby. Gotta get it in, baby. Um, I get it. It's the NFL. People don't want to coddle these guys. This guy comes from Alabama. Um, People have a level of expectation, and I think that's a good thing. I understand there's pressure that comes along with it, and that can contribute to things. But at the end of the day, man, we're in the NFL. The margin of error is razor thin, and we got to take advantage of every single opportunity that comes our way. So that's where we're at with Latu. Um, that's where we're at with Latu. Let's see. I hate training camp stats. I do. I do. I understand why people look at them when they're not there. I get it. I understand it. I can't stand them because they don't provide me anything. Like, I'll read it out loud, and I'm prefacing right now that I do not like training camp stats, but I also understand when you aren't at practice and you're not there to kind of contextualize everything. It's something. It's something. So I understand that part of it, but I don't like it. I don't like evaluating off of it. I don't like, oh, he was 55 completion percentage. Not my cup of tea. Like Brock Purdy, for example, was 11 of 16. These are from Matt Mayoko. Brock Purdy was like 11 of 16. Trey Lance was 6 of 10. Like, people will see 6 of 10 and be like, oh, Trey Lance was 50% completion percentage. He's inaccurate. It's one of the most frustrating arguments I think I could be a part of. I don't buy it if you went 16 of 16 or 1 of 16. There's context to it all, and I don't put a lot of weight into it. But again, it does paint part of the picture. I think the interesting thing here, which is this is the most interesting thing. This is the most interesting thing. Brock Purdy got 11 on 11. He got 27 reps. So obviously leading all the quarterbacks. Trey Lance in 11 on 11 reps got 19 reps. Sam Darnold in 11 on 11, 9. Brandon Allen, goose egg. So, Trey Lance, 19 reps. Sam Darnold, 9 reps. Now, why could that be interesting to me? Because we've heard multiple people talk about, like, when I say people, like beat reporters, talk about how, oh, maybe this outing for Trey Lance could be a tryout for the Raiders. And the reason why I bring that up is because Vic Tafur, who's like the Matt Mayoko of Raiders beat reporters, quote tweeted Matt Barrow's play where it says Trey Lance just led a good-looking drive to end practice. His fourth down throw in the end zone was on target but dropped by Cameron Latu. Vic Tafur quote tweets that, and he says, Who is going to trade for Lance? Question mark. Worth a shot for some team looking for a future starter. I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. I don't have an opinion. I don't have any. I'm just reading. I'm reading these thoughts from 49ers reporters. Now Vic Tafer, who is going to trade for Lance? That's the question you're asking after the first joint practice. That's the question. Who's going to trade for Lance? Worth a shot for some team looking for a future starter. Is Jimmy Garoppolo the 49er, or excuse me, the Raiders' future starter, or is he the starter right now? Again, I'm not saying anything. I am not saying anything. I'm not saying anything. All I know is I'm keeping this thing on me at 24/7. 24/7. I'm protected. And I'm ready for anything. Just saying. Just saying. This is the OG tinfoil hat, too, by the way. OG tinfoil hat. Interesting. Interesting. Does it mean anything? I don't know. But we've kind of been conditioned to believe like, well, this could be a tryout. This could be a tryout for Trey Lance. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying anything. I'm connecting the dots. Oh, hey, I don't know. It's not my decision. It's above my pay grade. So we'll see. Thought it was interesting. I was like, that is an interesting thing to tweet directly after a practice. That's a very interesting thing to tweet. Very, very interesting thing to tweet. So, hey, we'll see. Let's see. I'm looking through some Raiders stuff. I did see from a Raiders beat reporter that the 49ers defensive line got the best of the Raiders O-line during one-on-one drills. Not surprised by that, because I know, like, when I talk about the 49ers defensive line getting a ton of pressure in training camp, getting a ton of sacks, people are like, oh, the 49ers offensive line is bad. And I'm like, I don't think they're bad. I just think, again, we have this conversation every year about 49ers defensive line dominating, and we're like, oh, offensive line not in good shape. And it's like, that's not what that means. Two things can be true. The 49ers offensive line can be good, and the 49ers defensive line could just be better. Like, their quality. Like, we know how good the 49ers defensive line is. So 49ers defensive line sounds like and this is by Raiders standards, that they're beating Raiders defensive line. So that's something to note. I'm reading through some Raiders notes to try to get a different feel for it. Apparently Hoyer got most of the work in the last scrimmage. I didn't see. Oh, we got the one Jimmy Garoppolo touchdown. I didn't see any Jimmy Garoppolo interceptions though. I didn't see any Jimmy Garoppolo interceptions. So Jimmy went 4 of 6 on 2-minute drill with the TD pass to Hooper. Nice diving catch despite the defensive PI flag. So sounds like Jimmy had a decent practice. So, again, I think the biggest story right now to come out of joint practices is the injuries for the 49ers. I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously, we know what happened to Ray and Dre Greenlaw, George Kittle, and Drake Jackson. Obviously, that's not the best case scenario. But it is definitely going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. I'm not seeing any interceptions by Jimmy Garoppolo today. So sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo stayed clean for the most part. He had one touchdown drive that ended in a touchdown to Austin Hooper. So I know. So we had a Trey Lance fumble on a snap. That's been something that's been happening quite a bit throughout training camp. But I would say that's really the only miscue that I saw from Trey Lance, and that there's a duality to that. That could be it could be a center problem. It could be a quarterback center exchange problem where it's on both of them. It could be on quarterback because quarterback's not paying attention. There's not enough information to be able to assign blame. I would say unless like you have tape and you can see what's happening. Because sometimes center will snap it too fast. I think there's different things that can play into that. So I'm not gonna say that's a Trey Lance issue. It's just been happening to Trey Lance. But again, the theme is Trey Lance is taking center snaps from. I don't think he's not taking center snaps from Jake Brendel. So I think the backup center is is Zakel, I believe. So we'll see. But it sounds like it was a good practice by Trey Lance. Outside of this is what we got from Jennifer Lee Chan. So I like how she did this and the way she broke this down. She had this is her having 49ers Brock Purdy in the 2-minute drill. She listed a completion to Juwan Jennings 2 times in a row, incomplete to Jennings, incomplete to CMC, complete to Debo, complete to Dwelly, a throwaway, and incomplete to Jennings in the end zone. So that gives us more kind of an itemized kind of process of how Purdy and the first string offense worked through the 2-minute drill. Interesting that Dwelly was in there. So with the injury to Kittle, that obviously changes things a little bit. So more Dwelly, more Warner. Latu obviously running with the 2s. So we'll see. Outside of that, I feel like that's a pretty good summary of what we got from move the ball period, which again are going to be your most important periods of practice. They're the most that resemble game time simulation. So move the ball periods are always going to be weighted more than other team periods. So we'll see. That's what we got today. It sounds like the boys did all right. Sounds like Jimmy G had a nice touchdown drive as well. So this was my observation last year of joint practices with Minnesota and the 49ers. The first day was lighter. So I remember this because there's all kinds of Twitter talk from Minnesota Vikings fans about how Christian Darrisaw was owning Nick Bosa, and they were just like they were victory lapping, like, "Oh, Darrisaw owning Bosa, Darrisaw this, Darrisaw that," and me being there, I was like, "No," because as we understand in these practices, what happens is if you get a sack, you pull up, right? We know what happens. You get by your guy, you pull up, and you let the play continue. And that's what Nick Bosa was doing. He was going through the motions. He was, he was probably at about like a 90% speed and he was pulling up. Then all that talk on Twitter happened. And then that next practice, the next joint practice, the intensity went through the roof. And Nick Bosa went insane. That was the practice where he had like 6 or 7 sacks and just absolutely dominated. He went from like 85% to 110% the next day and went crazy. And he didn't care at that point. He was messing up plays. He was doing all this kinds of stuff. So I would actually anticipate that the intensity will ratchet up one step further tomorrow because now these guys have a baseline of like how the competition went, and now these guys they're gonna get called out in meetings. They're gonna this that the other thing, and so I would expect tomorrow's intensity is going to be ratchet up another level. So it'll be interesting to see what tomorrow's practice looks like. Um, and see how everyone kind of takes that step forward. I expect tomorrow to be the most live of all the practices. So tomorrow will probably be a pretty quality day for everyone. Uh, I missed the beginning. Were you at joint practice today? No, I wasn't. Joint practices weren't open. Um, they weren't open, so I was not allowed to go. If they were, I would be there for sure. I would have made the trip um, because we would have got some quality content for sure. Um, but no, no joint practices. I think it was. I think it was. I think it was not even open to everyone at from a media standpoint. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Is it true that the Niners, both offense and defense, got served? It doesn't. I didn't see anything that came across like that. I think again, you had a touch. I think Jimmy Garoppolo had the only touchdown in that team period. It doesn't sound like Brock scored, and it sounds like Trey could have scored, but they had a drop. Um, but outside of that, it seemed pretty down the middle. I didn't see anyone provide an opinion that would dictate that one team owned the other team. So again, it's this is why I don't like not being able to be there because I would love to definitively answer that question for you, but I can't right now because I can only go off like these little snippets. Um, these little snippets. And that's what we got to go off of. Um, so we'll see. We'll see. What does Kinlaw look like? Kinlaw's looked phenomenal. Kinlaw's looked fantastic. I've been so excited by by what he's been looking like. Um, Kinlaw looks like a different player. He's faster. He's quicker. First step get off looks like night and day different. He has pass rush moves. Kinlaw is going to, and the fact that he doesn't have to be forced into a starting role and he can be a rotational interior defensive lineman, I think he's going to look pretty damn solid. Again, just got to stay healthy. But as long as he stays healthy, I think Kinlaw will absolutely make an impact this year. When is Nick Bosa coming back? That's the question that everyone wants to know. When is Bosa going to get paid? I I would love to know. I would love to know the same thing. When are we getting Bosa that money? When are we getting him that contract? Gotta be soon, man. Gotta be soon. We can't see the thing that I'm now starting to get concerned of with like the Nick Bosa thing dragging on is what happens. Like, do we have to start being concerned about soft tissue? Like, because if he goes from 0 to 100, and I would say out of anyone like with Nick Bosa, I'm less concerned about that because we understand Bosa is going to be in phenomenal shape. We know he's going to be prepared and we know he's going to be ready to go. That's we're understanding of that. But you also kind of want him to have at least a little ramp up period. You want him to be able to get out there and go through the motions of practice. And I don't necessarily need to see him in a preseason game, but yeah, I would love to see Nick Bosa out there. I would love to see Nick Bosa kind of go through the motions, get prepared, get ready to go, and hit the ground running when the season starts. I did not anticipate the holdout lasting this long. And see, the thing is that Bosa's probably going to get what he's asking for. So it's like, at what point does this just become a little bit like frugal? Like, at what point do we just like, man, just he's going to be the highest paid defender in NFL history. Like, we understand what it is. He's that good. We understand that the 49ers want to get him paid. They want to get it done. And obviously they don't want to get taken advantage of, which is that's not what I'm also saying either. It's just like, oh, just give him a blank check. That's not what I'm saying. But you also just pay him. Just get it done. Like, we understand that like these contract negotiations can have a mental impact on these players. Like, that's a real thing and it's been documented, especially with the San Francisco 49ers. Hell, I remember Frank Gore talking about this, and Frank Gore saying that he wanted to be a part of those conversations. And when he was a part of those conversations, he was like, "Damn." He was like, "It's cutthroat. Like, they come after you. They come after every hole in your game." And they just he was like, "Damn, this is crazy." We saw what happened with Debo. Debo was not the same person last year. Not saying that's going to happen to Nick Bosa, but it's also like, when do we understand like our number one interest right now is winning a Super Bowl, and it would be fantastic to have the best player on the team right now. According to NFL players, the number fourth ranked player in the entire NFL. Just pay the man. Just pay him. That's according to the NFL, he's the number one ranked defensive player in the NFL right now. So I get it. He's going to require the bag. He's going to require a lot of money, but just get it done. Just do it. Just pay him. We know when the report is going to come down. It's going to be Nick Bosa is the highest paid player in the history of the NFL from a defensive standpoint. We know that's going to be the case. So just do it. Let's just do it. This is going on too long. It's going on too long. I don't like it. I don't like it. They're going to pay him. Quit dragging it out. Just pay him. Just pay him. Just do it. Just pay him. You're going to pay him anyways. That's the one thing that I don't love. They're going to pay him anyways. He's going to get that check. But it's just like they're just pushing it out. It's just like, just do it. Just do it. Come on. Come on, Shelly. Just do it. Has Kalaya Davis practiced at all? I'm going to be honest. I have not seen Davis. I've seen him kind of go through drills. I've seen him go through some one-on-ones and things like that, but I have really not seen Kalaya. I haven't noticed him in team drills. I haven't noticed him pop. I really haven't seen anything from him throughout training camp. It definitely wasn't something where he just popped out and was like, "Oh, look at Davis, he's balling." I haven't seen anything from Davis, um, particularly this training camp, but also I wasn't going out of my way to like hunt him down. But again, when you flash, and I haven't seen anything from him from a standpoint where like he flashed and like I don't have any one-on-one rep from him where I have him logged as a W. Don't even know if I have him as a loss. Like I just that's a guy that just has not stood out to me in training camp one way or the other. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Joshua says, "Yo, Brad, you're the go of this YouTube IG thing." Well, I appreciate that. There's a lot of really good, talented guys out here doing this. Definitely more talented than me, but I do appreciate that. Uh, I work really hard at this. I will say that. I grind it out, but there's some really talented guys out here doing just what I'm doing. But I do appreciate the compliment. Thank you so much. Do you guys have any other questions as we kind of get to the tail end? Anything that you guys want to talk about before we get in? You can ask training camp questions. You can ask joint practice questions. Feel free to drop any questions that you guys got in the chat, and we can talk about it right here before we get out of here for the day. And again, this is a good little recap on the injuries that if you're just joining, these are the injuries that happened from today, outside of Ray McCloud's broken wrist. But this is what we got right now. Sounds like, from again recapping joint practices outside of the injury stuff, sounded like a pretty even day for the most part. Sounded like you know, sounds like defensive line for the 49ers did a really good job in one-on-ones. Sounds like Jimmy Garoppolo was able to move the ball down the field a little bit, score with a touchdown to Austin Hooper. We had a drop touchdown from Trey Lance to Cameron Latu. We did have an interception from Purdy. We had an interception from Purdy. I don't know the context behind that, but I do know he had an interception. And Trey had a fumbled snap. So we weren't perfect on the day, but it doesn't sound like it was a horrible day either. Trey Lance got the lion's share of the second team reps, 19 snaps versus Sam Darnold's 9. Sounds like for the most part, Trey Lance had a good day. Sounds like Trey was seemed. I mean, I didn't see anything that would indicate that Trey had a shaky performance. So sounds like Trey's doing all right. Trey's doing good, I should say. Brock Purdy, TBD. Again, it was hard to really discern. Like, did he have a good day? Was it fatal flaw interception? I haven't really gathered. I haven't able to see enough context about that. So, um, still trying to make sense of it. Let's see here. Justin, appreciate the super chat. He says, "Brad, what do you think about playing Demario Douglas with Zappy for preseason?" Oh, absolutely do that. This is not betting advice, but absolutely do that. Demario Douglas, I'm sure you've been. I was one of the leaders of the Demario Douglas hive. I really thought the 49ers were going to take a look at him and bring him in, but he was drafted in the 6th round by the Patriots. He's good. He's good. He's a good player. And he's probably going to get a lot of looks today because he's kind of running behind Bourne and Parker and, probably Tyquan Thornton and those guys. But Demario Douglas is a slot. He's going to be around the line of scrimmage. He's probably going to be Zappy's one of Zappy's best friends. So yes, Demario Douglas by the stonks. I got Demario Douglas in my dynasty leagues. I feel pretty happy about it. So yes, I feel good about Demario Douglas balling. And Zappy's a pretty solid quarterback too. So that should work out pretty good. We got football tonight. I didn't even know. I'm like, my schedule's all over the place, right? Because for training camp, I just get locked into like what days training camp practices are happening. And so I can kind of like lose my sense of what day of the week it is. Like I had no idea it was Thursday. So apparently we got Thursday night football tonight. Um, yes, more football all the time. And we're also going to have but 49ers football will be back on Sunday. So best time. Best time. We're back. We're back, baby. We're back talking about football. We got 49ers versus Raiders joint practices. We got injury reports. That's how you know football's back. But shout out to you guys. Vince says, how long will Kittle and Drake be out? Sounds like it's about like a week, maybe two. Again, soft tissue. Shouldn't be too bad. I would imagine that it's going they're going to be okay by the regular season. Um so to my point though, all offseason about the 49ers keeping 4 tight ends is again, if Kittle is not available, if Kittle for some reason gets dinged up or isn't available, is Kyle Shanahan going to feel confident running 2 rookie tight ends? I don't think so. I think this is a perfect example of why the 49ers are going to keep 4 tight ends. This is what I've been saying since the draft. The 49ers are going to keep 4 tight ends. Braden Willis is going to prove that he's worthy of being on the roster, and they're not going to be able to cut Latu because they picked him in the 3rd, and they're not going to feel comfortable carrying 3 tight ends with 2 of them being rookies. So I imagine that it's going to be Kittle, Warner, Latu, and Braden. And that's going to have an impact on the wide receivers. So, but again, Ray getting hurt opens up another opportunity for maybe a guy like Ronnie Bell to sneak through or Chris Conley. It's going to be very interesting to see what happened to Rob Shue. I've seen this a couple times. What happened to Shue? I haven't talked to Shue in a while. I just realized that. I haven't talked to Shue in a long time. What happened? Did his account get deactivated? I don't know. I've seen a couple things about that. Hopefully not, because that would suck. Do you think Ray's injury solidifies Jameson's spot? That's actually a really good question because I already think that Jameson has done enough to prove that he can beat out Ambry Thomas just as a cornerback. But the fact that you add in Jameson's ability as a returner, that's a phenomenal point. Now, I mean, honestly, that's a phenomenal point. I already believed Jameson has done enough to push Ambry Thomas out just from playing defensive back perspective. But if Jameson becomes one of your primary rotational returners and with Ray going out, that could be the difference. That could absolutely be the difference of Jameson taking a spot, and that could be Ambry's spot because obviously Jameson can play. He can play all special teams. He could be a returner. He could be. I mean, he could be a gunner. He could be a guy on kickoff. Like, you can use Jameson in multiple different roles on special teams. And if he's playing at a high level at cornerback, then he could definitely be the guy that pushes Ambry out. I think that's one of the big time roster battles that we got right now with the 49ers. It's Jameson versus Ambry Thomas. And that's a phenomenal point because if Jameson can provide that return value, that makes his chances of making the roster even greater. That's a phenomenal point. I didn't even think about that. That's a phenomenal point. I didn't think about that. Do I think Danny Gray is going to get a shot this year? Yeah, I think he'll get more opportunity. And again, Ray being out bumps Danny up the roster. So now you take Danny, who's sitting in the 5 hole, that's going to put him in the 4 hole. And that's going to give Danny Gray more opportunities on the field. And I liked what I saw from Danny Gray in training camp. I do. I really, really do. So I do think Danny Gray's now, like, before, like, we understand, like, the primary receivers, it's a run first offense, and you know guys are going to be seldomly used past, behind Jawan Jennings. But absolutely, there's a world that exists. I gotta go back and look up like what my projection was for Danny Gray on the year. Because like I said, I did that underrated 4 underrated players heading into training camp on Bleacher Report, and Danny Gray was one of my underrated guys. And I also put out a stat projection for him. I don't got it in front of me right now. I'll find it another time. But yeah, I do think that that happens. Um, who would return kicks while Ray is out? I mean, Ray filled a role that we had been looking for a while today, right? Like, we had Ayuk sometimes in that kick return role. We had Trenton Cannon. You remember Trenton Cannon? We were just going through guys. So, to be honest, who would fill that role? I don't know. Maybe Jameson is that guy. I'm not gonna pretend like I was paying attention. I was paying attention to what the lineup was like when they were drilling punt return and kickoff return. So I don't know what the standard depth is right now and who was behind Ray, because my eyes were somewhere else. But I could see Jameson being a guy. Maybe on kickoff, you could see Danny Gray. Um, Kyle Shanahan spoke directly to that, and he said Danny Gray would be more of a kickoff guy, not a punt return guy, just based on the differences between punt return and kickoff, and that type of stuff. So, uh, open tryouts right now. Oh, I'm still fixated on the Deshaun Jameson point, of like that could be his way on the roster. Like that could be the final nail in the coffin for Ambry, is that if Deshaun can be your primary returner and be a quality backup defensive back. I don't know, Ambry. I don't know, Ambry. I've had 3 underwhelming camps in a row. If Ambry can come out and have a really good preseason, so uh we'll definitely do an episode on guys to focus on during preseason. Guys that have the most to lose, most to gain, and most to lose during preseason, because there are guys where like we know preseason doesn't mean nothing if your roster spot is locked. Like, if you're a lock, preseason does not matter. But if you are fighting for a spot, you can make or break your position on a roster with preseason. So there are definitely guys that are going to have to go out and show out in preseason to earn their spot. Obviously, practice that you can learn a lot about guys in practice, but as we've also seen, you can learn a lot about guys' game in in preseason when the lights come on, when it's go time. Like you have guys that are gamers, like that does exist. Like you have guys that are terrible practice players, but for whatever reason, the lights come on and boom, these guys just take it up to a completely different level. So, this training camp or like this preseason, like it it's weighted. It's absolute means nothing to some players, but to others it means everything. So, and we got guys battling for roster spots. We for sure got guys battling for roster spots right now. So this is going to be a big preseason for sure. Big preseason, lots on the line, guys getting after it, but that's exactly how you want it. So joint practices day 2 tomorrow. Biggest thing, the number one key for tomorrow, no injuries. Health. Health, health, health. like, like, man, number one, like, can we? I don't know. It's so difficult because obviously it's such good work to be able to go up against someone else's first string defense and first string offense with your guys, but it's like, man, I don't want injury. I don't want injury. No injury. No injuries tomorrow. Number one key. Bubble wrap. I don't know. Just be healthy. I want these guys to go out and compete. Obviously, you can't have fear of injury because that will somehow bring injury upon you. You just got to go out there and protect yourself, compete, put yourself in a good position to make plays. I don't want injury. Don't want injury. Any more injury news tomorrow would be unfortunate. So that's that's my number one thing. No injuries tomorrow, please. No injuries. Uh, yeah, no injuries, please. Football gods, do if I have to make an offering, I'll do it. Uh, just protect our boys. No more injuries, no more soft tissue, no more broken bones, no torn ligaments. We need health. Get these boys through to the promised land. Please, please just make them healthy. That's all we want. That's all we want. We understand it's still to this day, it's been the 49ers biggest and toughest opponent is health. That has been the case since like over a decade now. Their biggest like the thing that can stop them the fastest is health. Not an opposing team, not these other guys. It's health. Health, health, health. So I know we're a little sensitive to it, and rightfully so. But hopefully tomorrow, number one thing, we get out of there no help. The update we're giving, everyone healthy. No more dings. Got out of there, and we turn the page towards preseason to be played on Sunday. So that's the hope, and we'll see how it goes from there. Right. So shout out for everyone for tapping in today. Thank you guys for following along. If you're new to the channel, would appreciate you subbing and sticking around more and popping into our lives. Shout out the Sourdough Squad. Shout out the Mod Squad. Grab your cookies on the way out. We will be back tomorrow doing the same thing, reacting to whatever comes out of joint practices, and we'll be sharing it all with you guys as we get prepared for preseason week 1. We're here, baby. Football's back. Let's go. We got football on tonight. Appreciate you guys. Y'all the best. I'm out of here. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it.